Let me tell you about Shining Force. I like it a lot. You probably had no idea. The game is one of those instantly recognizable titles from the old school days of the Genesis. If you asked a bunch of people to name a Sega Genesis RPG, this would probably get name dropped several times. Contemporarily, the game is often compared to Nintendo's Fire Emblem, but Fire Emblem didn't reach Western shores until 2003, well past Shining Force's time in the sun. The connection between both titles was pretty straightforward. They were both strategy role-playing games released by rival companies. That's it really. Despite Fire Emblem having the lead on Shining Force by a year or two, Camelot's Hiroyuki Takahashi has gone on record to say that Fire Emblem did not inspire Shining Force at all. Both titles developed on their own and only had minute similarities. But the Super Nintendo was home to a game that is much more like Shining Force than Fire Emblem ever would be. A game that very clearly took cues from Shining Force's visuals, combat, and aesthetics. This game also nicked the original Shining Force's artists, so you know they're serious with their influences. I guess the adage, imitation is the most sincere form of flattery, really does ring true this time around. So let's take a look at this very Shining Force inspired SNES Shining Force knockoff. I'm Richard for RPG Fortress, and this is Feda, Emblem of Justice. Feda, Emblem of Justice is a tactical turn-based RPG for the Super Nintendo Entertainment System. It was developed by Max Entertainment and published by Yanaman Corporation in 1994. You might not have heard of either of these companies. Both were very small and only really existed during a portion of the 90s just in Japan. None of their games ever made it out of Japan. Max Entertainment only produced 3 games, all published by Yanaman, and Yanaman only published a dozen games. Yanaman and Max Entertainment both ceased video game development in 1997 after brief flirtations with the brand new PlayStation. Max Entertainment seems to have vanished off the face of the earth, and Yanaman is now, hang on, I need to reread this. Yanaman is now Japan's largest maker of jigsaw puzzles. Random. Other than Feda, the only other notable games that Yanaman published were a number of RPGs in a series called Aretha. Aretha 2, and Aretha 3 for the Game Boy, and what may be a port, Aretha for the SNES. I've never heard of any of these games, but they look adorable, so I need to check them out at some point. Now, being very similar to Shining Force isn't just a coincidence or a stylistic choice, but several of the game's staff have actually worked on Shining Force and related titles. Producer Kenji Orimo was a writer and designer on Shining Force. You can actually collect the secret item Kenji in Shining Force, which has a little caricature of his face on it. The man also worked on Landstalker and Alundra. The game's supervisor was Kan Naito. This guy was a programmer on Shining Force. He is also founder and director of Climax Entertainment, the company who worked alongside Camelot, when they were Sonic Software Planning, on the development of Shining Force. This guy has worked on several Shining Force adjacent titles like Landstalker, Lady Stalker, Dark Savior, etc. He also worked on Shining in the Darkness and the GBA remake of Shining Force. Going even further back in time, he worked on Dragon Quest III and Dragon Quest IV on the NES. The man lives and breathes RPGs. Now, even more importantly in this DNA that links Shining Force and Feda is the game's director and character designer, Yoshitaka Tamaki. He was the character designer, one of the scenario writers, and the graphic designer for Shining Force. The man who brought the Shining Force characters to life is the man who brought the Feda characters to life. He was partially responsible for the world building of Shining Force, and is partially responsible for the world building in Feda. So when I say Feda is Shining Force on the SNES, that's only minute amounts of hyperbole. Feda is a long-lost cousin of Shining Force. The story of Feda, Emblem of Justice is, you know what, it's actually pretty good and unique, especially for an old RPG. The story begins in medias res with the Balformian Empire attacking a much smaller nation so they can expand their territory. The Empire has been in control for quite some time and regularly engages in bloody campaigns to extend and strengthen their grasp on this war-torn world of Midras Gars. The Balformian army is not just efficient in these skirmishes, but it is also cruel in its deeds, scorching the land and murdering civilians. Enter our hero, Brian. Brian is a human soldier and a member of the Balformian army. There aren't many other humans in their ranks, so he is ridiculed as a minority by the demi-humans that make up the squad he's in. The story drops him and the battalion right into the action as they are tasked with destroying a village and killing the civilians. Brian is tired and weary, having had enough of the war and the outright bloody murder of innocent people. Midway through the battle, Brian ups and runs as he wants to escape the life of a brain-dead soldier fighting for an empire that loathes him and his kind. During his mad escape, Brian is apprehended and sent to jail for desertion. He is shortly set free by the Wolfling warrior Ain, and the two leave the Empire with the intent to leave war behind and live peacefully in some quiet village hidden away from the Empire and their bloody campaigns. Brian and Ain are pursued by the Empire, who want them dead, and also quickly become ensnared by the Liberation Army and their drive to defeat the Balformian Empire to take back what was taken from them. At first, the two soldiers aggressively turn down the advances by the Liberation Army to add them to their ranks. The two are paranoid that this is just another cruel and vicious military outfit looking for soldiers to kill and die for their cause, while the powers that be behind the scenes grow fat off of the military spoils. The game spends a lot of time trying to explain to Brian and Ain that the Empire fighting for greed and a liberation movement fighting to be free from the grasp of their oppressors are two very different things, and it takes the characters a large portion of the game to really see the difference. It's not a light switch moment where they immediately snap ideals. It is a long and belabored task for these poor men who have been beaten down by war and abuse from a cruel empire to actually understand that fighting for freedom is a noble cause. And so our heroes turn over a new leaf and join the Liberation Army to fight back against their oppressors. And how glorious this is! This is a big boy story. You're not out there to kill the big bad dragon because he's bad and you're good. You're out there to take down tyrants so that children will have a place to grow up. What a story! Now, there is lots of magic and dragons and centaurs and all that good stuff here too, but I am still shocked at how intelligent the themes for this game actually are. As the game progresses, you will meet lots of characters and engage in loads of drama as things start heating up. There are some classic RPG tropes to balance out the big boy politics. There's a world-saving magic sword. There's loads of elves. There's loads of robots. There are ninja insect men. One of my favorite parts of Shining Force Resurrection of the Dark Dragon, the Game Boy remake of Shining Force, was Zuika. Zuika is a new party member created just for this version of the game. He is an insect ninja man. A very cool concept. Little did I know, but Feda has an entire nation of insect ninja men. You even get one of these insect ninja men to join your party. His name is Tobikagi. He is a little bit fragile, but his special attack is pretty powerful. He's just cool. Feda has a load of really cool characters. I mean, it's Yoshitaka Tamaki. He's got an incredible imagination that reflects really well in his character designs. Your lead character, Brian, is kinda like a cross between Max and Rambo. A gruff and grizzled swordsman with a Rambo bandana and mullet and Max's skirt. He's a powerful melee unit, and due to storyline reasons, TM, he eventually gets a robot arm. Ain is your sidekick, a wolfling warrior who wields katanas and can make mincemeat out of anyone. His attack range is severely limited though, as even his special attack only hits one space away. Dora is your first archer. She's a foxling and has great attack range. Her special doesn't hurt enemies, but has a high chance of inflicting paralyze. It's really good for crowd control. Dan is probably my favorite unit, a powerful lizardman fighter who uses axes and hammers to wreak havoc on enemy forces. Richard, is a Dragonoot who is very powerful and has a devastating fire breath attack for his special. As the game progresses, you get many more units. Melee fighters, archers, mages, and healers. There are loads of interesting characters to find and recruit during your adventure. Collecting new units is probably the most rewarding part of the actual gameplay. I just love Yoshitaka Tamaki's designs, and that's precisely what first got me to pick up Feda in the first place. Oh, it's Shining Force on the SNES. It even has the same character designer. I shouted before I learned how deep the connections really went. Now, I know it sounds like I'm absolutely in love with this game, but now we're gonna move on to the actual gameplay, and I want you to sit down and brace yourself because this game fucked me up really bad. Feda has a lot of classic SRPG tropes: top-down exploration, turn-based combat, chunky sprites, engage in combat to level up, you know, the standard SRPG starter pack. But Feda also has some unique systems, some good unique, some bad unique. It's like a decent everyday little salad with some nice bacon bits and some toenails sprinkled on top. Let's start off by talking about the eponymous Emblem system. As you march forward through the game, you'll engage in a number of battle scenarios. A lot of battle scenarios, but we'll follow up on this in a little bit, and each battlefield will have its own mission parameters to finish. If you are a good little troop, you will gain law points. If you're a bad soldier, you'll earn chaos points. When you start a mission, you'll be alerted to special parameters to finish the battle correctly, in other words, the law path. If you simply murder all the enemy units, you will eschew the law path for the chaos path and earn chaos points. As you gain law and chaos points, your emblem will shift. You start off at neutral, called a Viper, and if your law level goes up, you will go through the law paths Blade Eagle, Griffith, Valkyrie, and Feda. As you gain chaos points, you will shift down through Phantom, Balrog, Hellhound, and Genocide. As you move onward, Law wins and Chaos wins will be having this tug of war to see who comes out on top. As you move towards the higher levels of Law characters are more likely to join you and Chaos characters are more likely to leave you, and vice versa. Every battle will contribute to who joins and who stays, but this system is kinda fucked up. I would often see myself get a new character, fight a single battle, and then have my new character immediately leave after the battle. And it was almost always Law characters leaving. It's like you can have maximum Law, but if you do a single battle where you eliminate all units, even when the mission is kill all units, characters can leave. I had L join, fight one battle, and then leave afterwards. I had Richard, my namesake, join, fight a single battle, and then leave. He left so fast, I didn't even get footage of him in combat, just this single screenshot. Give me a break. Oh, and when a character leaves due to this alignment change, you can never get them back. They just evaporate from the game completely. One thing that I'm always immediately intrigued and concerned by in SRPGs is how units take turns. SRPGs have loads of troops on the map. Loads of troops you control, loads of troops you are fighting, and sometimes loads of neutral troops. That's a lot of dudes doing a lot of things. There are generally two ways of doing this. The first and most widespread is what I call the Fire Emblem style. This is where all your units take an action, and then all enemy units take an action. The second, and my favorite, is what I call Shining Force style. This is where each unit has its own agility stat, and whoever has the highest agility goes first, with the next highest going next. I find that the Shining Force style can be both easier and harder. If you have great agility, you are going to go first. If a couple of enemy units have higher agility, they are going to go first and they could destroy you. The Fire Emblem style means that every turn, all enemy units are going to go at the same time. This means that if you place a unit in the wrong place, they can get swarmed. There is no, oops, I messed up, I need to correct this on the next turn. There is only, oh well, I'm dead. Now, take whichever style you prefer and put them in the bin because Feda does neither. Feda's turn system is done with one of your units going, followed by one of the enemy units going. and then it goes back and forth until the round is over. This is kind of cool because you can choose which unit is going to act each turn. If you need to heal, grab a healer and heal. If you need to snipe an enemy, grab an archer and pew pew pew. So, no need for an agility stat. Then why do you have one? On top of this, you won't always be in a situation where there are equal enemy units and friendly units. So sometimes you get to give 2 units 2 actions, or sometimes enemies get to give 2 enemy units 2 actions. Sometimes at the beginning of combat, sometimes in the middle of combat, and sometimes at the end of combat. What a mess. How does this agility stat work? I have no idea. Combat in Feda is really what you make of it. The first battle is just as rewarding as the millionth battle. Well, what do I mean by this? What I mean is that there is practically no progression. As you fight in battle, you will gain experience, and yes, just like in Shining Force and every other game, gaining experience will eventually cause you to level up. Part of the appeal of SRPGs is that you have the eventuality of class promotions to look forward to, when your characters become so battle-hardened that they earn the ability to be upgraded to a stronger, cooler class. New skills, the ability to use stronger weapons. Class promotion is integral to the SRPG formula, and I hate to inform you that there is absolutely no promotion in Feda. I don't know how you overlook something this important to the Shining Force design doc, especially when you have been aping the aesthetics full blast this whole time. Further to this lack of advancement is that your characters never learn new skills. That's right, Brian starts with Impulse Slash or whatever it's called at level 1, and 50 plus levels later, Impulse Slash is still his only special attack. Got a major healer? They never learn new spells. There are no ways to advance beyond leveling up. And I guess buying new equipment, but equipment upgrades are few and far between. When I say collecting characters is probably the funnest part of this game, I really mean it. This is because it is the only time you will see something new. You have no idea how the lack of progression and advancement stunts this game. It's like there is nothing to strive for, nothing to look forward to. My recent playthrough of all the Shining Force 3 games had me glued to the games because there were always promotions on the horizon, there were always spell upgrades, there were always new characters, there were always level ups that actually meant something. Lots of things to advance, a real feeling of getting somewhere, but Feda, it's just a slog. Every battle was just one more battle. And this game doesn't have something manageable like Shining Force's 30 battles. This game has 80 battles spread over 12 chapters. For every interesting plot twist, there are 3 or 4 boring battles. It took me over 60 hours to finish this game, just due to the amount of battles. The game's graphics are not great. I mean, they're not terrible, but it's kind of those bog standard early SNES graphics. The sprites are bare bones, they get the job done, but they're kind of minimal. And I don't mean minimal as in minimalistic, I mean minimal as in there is not much to them. They're a bit drab and they don't have a lot of movement to them. Also drab are the locales. Whether you're in town or in battle, things are drab. Lots of grays, browns, and greens. Colors that really fit the military-esque world that is Feda, but any way that you shake it, grays, browns, and greens are drab. It's all a little bit boring. Until we get to the battle screen. The battle screen is a lot like, stop me if I've said this 10,000 times already in this video, Shining Force. These battle animations are absolutely gorgeous. They have that Shining Force flavor, but they're cooked with the smoothness of an SNES game. Big, chunky sprites swinging swords, slinging spells, and jumping around like monkeys. I'm looking at you, Royce. Never looked so great. These battle graphics are the absolute defining feature of this game's graphics and this game's combat. Holy hell, these giant sprites look great. Yoshitaka Tamaki's art really shines through. I just can't get over how good his designs transfer to these battle graphics. I would have liked to have seen his character portraits have a bit more attention put into them. They are very small with very little detail. They don't wink, their lips don't flap, and they don't even have multiple portraits for different emotions or reactions. It's just the same static stamp-sized image every time. And yeah, a lot of SNES games didn't have big emotional portraits. Games like FF6 and Chrono Trigger used emotive sprites to tell the story. But since we can't stop comparing this game to Shining Force, that game had some huge and colorful portraits. Would have been nice to see something similar in Feda. Looking at the menus for a minute, I know a real hot topic. I want to talk about navigating these menus. It's abysmal. Yes, I am going to whinge about how the menus work for a minute. Most games will give you a button that you can press while walking around so that you can check on your stats, your items, your options, but Feda does not have this. While walking around the town or camp screen, you can use the D-pad to move and the A button to talk to people. You can use it to search, but there's literally only 4 times in the entire game where the search button will actually find something. You can't search barrels, you can't search bookcases, you can't search treasure chests. There are no treasure chests. The button is basically a dedicated talk button, and you can't access a menu. So if you want to look at a character's info, you need to go to the main map, go to the camp screen, talk to the status guy, and then select the character you want to investigate. From this screen, you can check out your character's stats, and you can rename them, as random and weird as that is. But if you want to look at your gear, you have to go to a town, and you have to go to a shop, and you have to select buy or sell. This makes checking your unit's stats and equipment a needlessly tiresome multi-stage process. I think it's absolutely nutso that you need to go to a camp, talk to a dedicated status NPC, and then scroll a list to see your character's basic stats, and then go to a shop in a town and select buy or sell just to see the gear they have on them. Who came up with this system? This is stupid! Lackluster controls carry on into combat, I'm afraid. Feda, Emblem of Justice has absolutely no next unit shortcut. You need to drag the cursor and manually select your next unit every time. Sure, this was the standard back in the day, but at least Shining Force would quickly snap the cursor back to your current unit if you hit the cancel button. You can drag the cursor around to check on other unit stats, but there is no submenu for a map, no turn order, text speed, combat animation on or off. It's just all very bare bones. If you are going to play Feda, you are going to play by Feda's rules. And speaking of Feda's rules, you better be used to the text speed, because while it moves at a decent clip, it's always set to auto advance. So if you put the controller down mid-dialogue to grab something, the story will continue on without you. And no, there is no way to turn off auto advance. The game's music is also really bad. It's all very simple, and none of it takes advantage of the SNES sound chip. The sound fonts are very basic, they're very plain. There are first-gen SNES games with better sounding audio design than Feda, and the arrangements are very simple and very repetitive. And with the game having 80 battles and taking about 60 hours to clear, an eternity in SNES RPG years, you need an exciting, diverse, and large soundtrack. The soundtrack of Feda is not exciting, it's not diverse, and it's not large. All of these little things make Feda feel like an absolute chore to play. There is just so much fussing around with the confused systems and gameplay aspects that it feels like you're only partially in control of playing the game. This is the part of the analysis where I tell you that Feda not only has a remake for the Sega Saturn, but also a sequel on the PlayStation. I know, this script has been like a roller coaster strapped to a rocket, but we're almost done. Just sit down, we're almost there. Feda Remake was released in 1996 on the Sega Saturn and seemingly fixes some of the issues that the original SNES game had. The overhead graphics look a lot better, the music has been tweaked and rearranged and sounds a lot better now, and some characters apparently get new skills as the game moves forward. I haven't played it much because it's never been translated into English and there's no fan translation, but I'm not sure if the updates are really enough to salvage the game. There are now fully animated, fully voiced cutscenes which look great and they add a lot of personality to the game, but there is now a distinct, well, this is definitely a CD-based game, load into and out of battle graphics. Also, battle graphics, I think they've lost their charm from the SNES game. Feda 2 White Surge the Platoon, okay calm down English, was released in 1997 on the PlayStation. The game is a direct sequel and takes place a few years after Feda 1. I've only played the first battle because, once again, don't speak Japanese, but a lot of the charm from the original game has definitely been lost in this one. Battle graphics are pretty dull and really lack the charm of the first game's designs. Maybe this has something to do with none of the Shining Force alumni returning to work on this game. The music is boring, the maps are boring, it's pretty ho-hum. The game also starts with a 10-minute long FMV, an FMV that features Darren McBee, aka Thor from that one episode of Curb Your Enthusiasm, aka Motaro from Mortal Kombat Annihilation, Kim My Guest, aka Mei Ling from Metal Gear, and David Hayter. Yes, Solid Snake. What am I watching? Ahem. Feda's legacy is non-existent. And after dropping 60 hours into the first game and another 60 into research, I'm really not surprised. On paper, this sounded great. It looked great. It looked like a C-tier Shining Force inspired SRPG on the SNES from Shining Force alumni. It sounded like it was going to be right up my alley, but it wasn't. But they stuck with it for a while. They remade it. They did a sequel. There was even a third game planned, but nobody wanted it. Nobody wanted Feda. Feda Emblem of Justice is an absolute curiosity, a game that seems like it was conjured from a fever dream. Finding out about its existence was like waking up to angels leaving a hallowed gift on my bedside table. But when I opened that gift, it was just a petrified hunk of dinosaur dung. Sorry for the AVGNism. I really wanted to like Feda, but there is just so much wrong with it. And while I didn't care for much of it, I did have a lot of time researching it. It felt like I was in a crime novel, and around every corner there was a shocking revelation. Oh my god, it's a bunch of OG Shining Force staff. Wow, where the hell are my promotions? Huh, a remake on Saturn. Okay. Holy shit, Solid fucking Snake. I can really only recommend Feda to the most hardcore Shining Force fans. It has a lot of SF flavor, even though it misses the mark a lot. With the lack of progression and advancement, whether you play 2 battles or 80, you've really seen all the game has to offer. Those slick battle graphics and the great story premise are fantastic, but it's not enough to save the game. Also, what's with that fan translation? Shout out to the crew who put it together, but there is a lot of working design style humor in there, and I can't say I was really a fan. Feda Emblem of Justice. We met like shadows in the night, and departed just as quick. Hello, and thank you for watching my little video. I hope you enjoyed learning about this weird little curiosity. Did you ever play Feda? I'd like to hear your thoughts on it. I didn't really enjoy it at all, but I really enjoyed learning about the game, Yanaman and Max Entertainment, and David Hayter just out of nowhere. Wow. If you want to support the channel, you can do one, all, or none of the following. Just watching is really enough. Thank you for doing so. If you want, why not like the video, subscribe, slap the shit out of that bell, share with someone who might enjoy it. Check out our Discord, check out our Patreon, send a super thanks. Walk the dog, walk the cat, walk yourself, walk with Yan. Yan can cook. And don't forget to add unit promotions to your SRPG that you're working on. I'm Richard for RPG Fortress. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to hug a cat. See you soon. Goodbye.